All right, we're back with you inside of the Africa Forum. This is Running African, and my next very, very special guest is my sister, Professor Verene Shepherd. She's joining us. I know Verene is up early this morning doing a bit of exercise and so on, but she has taken some time out to just pause and have a conversation with us. We're very happy to have her in the forum. Prof, you're there? All right, so I'm not necessarily seeing Professor Shepherd. I'm not hearing her either. So
Hi, good morning, good morning.
Good morning, good morning. I really wanted to see you.
I'm here,
But there you are. It's your name. Oh, there you are. Hey, Verene.
I'm here. Good morning.
Thank you so much for gracing the Africa Forum as you come, as you are. Beautiful. Verene, I was watching you yesterday. We're watching each other now, aren't we? So I was watching you yesterday on TV.
Yes.
In Talking History. And a great program. I really enjoyed it. And one of the issues that you raised, you've come here to talk about the book launch and your book, right? But I had to go to your program on Nationwide yesterday. A lot of people don't know you're back, so let me just tell our listeners that she's back. And you talked about the ongoing event now, which is the Pirates Week in Jamaica. You had two special guests with you talking through that. It kind of was such a sobering conversation, because how can we celebrate pirates here in Jamaica was a question that you raised. But then I got to thinking of Jeffrey Epstein. I said, if we haven't called out in Jamaica at any level Jeffrey Epstein, how are we going to call out? Are we going to even understand, Henry Morgan? And if we haven't called out Henry Morgan and the pirates, how in heaven's name are we going to understand Jeffrey Epstein? This is what I thought about as I listened to you yesterday. Just a quick recap, if you will, Prof, of what the gist of that conversation was with Professor Ahmed and Dr. Pat Green yesterday.
Yes. Well, I think the conclusion from all of the discussion yesterday, and by the way, thank you for listening and thank you for giving my program a little big up. Yes, great. I am back because I felt that it was necessary to rejoin the world from my hibernation and enter into some of these conversations to fully support you too in what you do, to bring understanding to our people, because history is still an unknown country in our country. So my conclusion from Ahmed and Pat, both of whom wrote pieces in different newspapers about this when they heard about it, is that there's, as Miss Lou would say, we're a living dichotomy. And while we have Emancipation Day, while we celebrate our heroes and heroines who fought against chattel enslavement and colonialism, we still continue to practice the legacies of colonialism. That was what I got from their conversation, because they were very clear that in a country that boasts about our freedom and anti-colonialism, and a country that celebrates these anniversaries that are so important, we still don't get it. And we are celebrating those who oppressed our ancestors. We are celebrating those who were murderers, those who trafficked our ancestors, those who oppressed enslaved Africans. And so I am still in a state of shock. And I remember listening to your program some weeks ago, when you I think last year sometime when you brought it up, and I felt your pain as you walked us through your own views about this. So I don't know what else to say about it. I continue to teach history, to preach anti-colonialism, and to ask our people to live what they say they preach.
And as you talk about the slavery and the legacies of slavery, the book that is about to be published, I think, I haven't had a chance to read all of it, but I've been going through.
Yes, it's already published.
It's already published. It's out and it's going to be launched on
Yes.
Thursday. Looking at
Yes.
gender-based violence, and this is edited by yourself and Dr. Delia B.
Dr. Daly Bean, yes.
Give us a gist, Verene, of what the book is about, because there are many chapters and they're all relevant. It's such what a work, what a body of work. The scholarship is phenomenal in terms of just looking at gender-based violence from different perspectives across the Caribbean and historically also. Can you give us a nutshell of what it's about, and also to speak specifically to your own chapter, because you've got a very, very
Yes.
chapter in the book.
Yes, my chapter started the book because we're trying to historicize this phenomenon
Yes.
of gender-based violence. And let me just say that I'm so proud that Dr. Delia Bean asked me to do this with her, because, she was my first PhD student. This is my
that.
student, having come into her own and still paying respect to those who, gave her a leg up along the way. So
Yes.
it's not always so. And therefore, I'm really proud of her and her progress. So this is among the first texts, if not the first, in the region to deeply ground modern issues of gender-based violence within a historical lens, using a historical lens, proving that the region's history not only shaped the current reality, but that knowledge of that past is crucial to solving modern problems. So essays in the text also expose the audience to new historical evidence and cases of gender-based violence, which shed light on how modern GBV, as we call it, was inherited and shaped in a colonial framework. So it's a big book, as you said. It's 26 chapters
Yes.
and an epilogue. And we have information, all the authors. People can go and look it up. There's a foreword by the former university director of the Institute for Gender and Development Studies, Professor Diana Fox. So I have an article in it. Delia also has an article in it. And since you talk about my own chapter, what I've tried to do is to show how far back
Prof,
is this phenomenon.
Let me interrupt you for a minute, only because let me take a break so that we don't have to break in the middle.
Okay,
Of that. So let me do
no
this.
problem.
Safe, reliable, great value. Always buy from an authorized IGL dealer. The time by IGL is
14 now, going up to 8 o'clock. Professor Verene Shepherd is online. Yes, Prof, your chapter in the book.
Yes, so my chapter is titled Gender-Based Violence in the Caribbean, Historical Roots, Contemporary Redress. And what I've tried to do is to show how far back we go in terms of gender-based violence, because we go to the period of the indigenous peoples and the violence that descended on them with capture and colonialism. Then we go through the period of slavery to show how people like Thomas Thistlewood, and you and I know all about Thomas Thistlewood, who was an enslaver in Western Jamaica, and who left diaries, accounts, evidence of his brutality towards the men and women on the plantation. Because when we talk about gender-based violence, it's not only about the sexual abuse of women by empowered men and not so empowered men sometimes, but about the violence that descend upon us because of our gender, because of our sex. And because of that, we know that men are abused as well, and historically men have been abused. And so what my chapter does is to really look back at some of these stories of, painful acts in our history.
Yes.
I talk about women like Mary Prince, who was enslaved in the Caribbean and who later was taken by her enslavers to England. And then someone published her thoughts, and what her thoughts reveal about the violence of slavery. She talks about Hetty, she talks about her own experience of beating and being transported. She talks about what happened during slavery to those who did not uphold the colonizers' ideas of oppression. So this book is really full of this kind of
I know.
information.
I
We
can't.
have,
Yes, go ahead.
yes,
Go ahead, Verene.
as I said, we have, well, I don't know if I mentioned this, but we have 26
Yeah.
chapters. And we have 4 men. I know that there should have been more men writing,
Yes.
but we have
Hilary
by
Beckles.
4 men: Hilary
Yes,
Beckles,
yes,
Jonathan Dolby,
yes,
O'Neill Josephs, and Amilcar
yes.
Sanatan. And at the launch, Amilcar will kind of represent the authors with because many of them cannot attend the launch this week, and so he will have a video message. And Hilary Beckles talks about black masculinity in Caribbean slavery. We have Hilda News talking about violence against enslaved women in 18th century Suriname. So we have authors looking at the experiences from Jamaica, from Suriname, from Trinidad and Tobago, and right across the Caribbean. We have one of the essays I like is by Jonathan Dolby. He used to teach in Jamaica at the UA. And his article is entitled "The Brutal Passions of the Licentious, the Prosecution of Rape and Sexual Abuse in 19th Century Jamaica." So it's really a broad-based text
Yes.
that looks at the roots of this phenomenon, but also its continuing
Yes.
presence
Because I noticed
in our society.
I didn't read this chapter, and I can't remember the author who wrote about the domestic violence. And I thought, boy, I really want to get to that chapter to see exactly how this is interrogated. That in itself was kind of provocative. When I looked at it, but there's just so much there, and because of time, I don't want to not talk about the launch itself, how people can get there, can participate. Is it on Zoom, or do we have to come up to UA? Give us an idea of what's going to happen on Thursday and where.
Yes. So, but before that, I think the chapter you're talking about is chapter 21 by Kendra and Pitt, which is called "Historicizing the Domestic Violence,
Yes.
Solidarity and Struggle in the Domestic Violence Lobby in Trinidad and Tobago." And one of the things about this book that I think is important is that we don't only talk about the scholarship and go back into history to talk about gender-based violence. We talk about how it's manifested today.
Yes.
And we talk about why it still is with us. And then we talk about advocacy. Because you know that I don't believe in just scholarship for scholarship's sake.
I know.
Researching for researching sake. We have to use it.
We should have introduced you right as a scholar activist.
As a scholar activist.
Yes.
And many of these authors in this text are scholar activists because they believe in the power of activism.
Yes.
And for example, Taito Heron, who led the Tambourine Army. Remember that march?
I was a big part of that.
Of course.
Yes.
And I walked till my foot nearly drop off. I have to tell you.
The shock wave was there. This is how how media and activism and academia can really make a difference in Jamaica, because we sent the shockwave into that walk, and the shockwave is IRFM's massive truck for outside broadcast. But I noticed
exactly. I remember that. Yeah. So some of these women who were on that march have chapters in this book.
I see Judith Wedderburn.
We focus on activism. Yes, Judith Wedderburn, Lynette Vassell. These are the pioneers of our struggle. These are women who were not afraid to stand up. And when it was not popular, they were writing about gender and about women in Caribbean history, about the relationships of men and women, about the roots of this, because we need to talk about power dynamics and the hegemonic masculinity. So all of that is explained in the book. But it will be at 5:30 this Thursday, March 19, at the University of the West Indies, not the Mona campus, but at the regional headquarters where the Vice Chancellor sits, So as they come to on Mona Road, instead of turning to go to the Mona campus, they turn right into the regional headquarters. And it starts at 5:30, I said. So it's a very important book. And we want the book to help those who want to understand the roots of gender-based violence, but also the power dynamics that feeds it today and why we need to struggle against it.
Yeah.
We need equality. We still don't have gender equality in our society, and we need to have that.
Well, the conversation has been ongoing, but this book is such an important disruption. At this point, I think it is critical. I'm going to really encourage all of our listeners, try and get to as many of you as possible. Try and get to the university. Is it available for those who can't?
It will be online. I don't have the link right now with me, but I'll send it to you.
Yes,
and maybe we can put it on our various Facebook pages, so that people will see. But yes, we know everybody can't come out, and so it will be there. But I just want to say that the work is a call to action, indicating the ways in which important work has been done over centuries to combat gender-based violence. Because remember, our enslaved ancestors fought against this too. Our women stood up against gender-based violence. Our men tried to stand up against this violence against them by empowered male. But we're also celebrating their victories. Yes. While giving a roadmap to what is needed to end the scourge of gender-based violence once and for all. We need to stop hierarchizing power. We need to understand that we're in this together, and we appeal to men and women to interrupt this scourge that still is on our landscape.
And this is the point. It says still on our landscape. What do we know? What kind of numbers do we have? I don't like to go numbers when we talk about gender-based violence, but the research has been done, I'm sure, in terms of what Jamaica's situation is in comparison to the Caribbean, and then what the Caribbean is. We had just in the last 2 weeks, 2 high-profile cases where 2 high-profile men have been sentenced in some, one is good, the other one in some kind of way. But I'm not quite sure the extent to which we were even aware of how pervasive this is.
Yes, I don't have the recent figures now, but I know that when they read my own article, they will see how the various percentages and the change from year to year in the percentages of gender-based violence. It's too high. Let me just say it's too high. And one of the things is that it's not only perpetrated by men, it's perpetrated by women as well. And that is why we need the education. There are quite a few students in the Institute for Gender and Development Studies now studying this. But when I was the director of the IGDS, I absolutely saw how this affects our society, because I was looking at the ways in which we did a study on the dropout rate at schools, and realized that one of the reasons that boys are dropping out in excess of women. Women stay in school and they use that for upward social mobility. And then they get the jobs and then they're earning okay. And then there's this view that because we still have a lingering ideology that men should be head of the household and men should be the income earners and men should look about women and all of that. That has been changing, and that has been changing for some time. And so when some men feel as if they're not economically in charge, not economically empowered, then it comes out in violence against women. And so there needs to be a more gender understanding across between men and women, so that they understand that it's okay if women are earning more than you are earning. It doesn't mean that we should.
But yes. Don't we have to contextualize that in the psychology of which is the personality disorders, if you will, whether it is narcissism, because that is a very serious one. This is where people usually feel that way when, a woman is earning more, or whether you're a sociopath. It seems to me as if this is critical to understanding gender-based violence,
yes,
narcissistic
it is critical.
Disorder.
Yeah, and that's why I'm saying that we need to interrupt this view that because women stay in school, because they want to progress, because of the historical background when they were, considered inferior.
Yes.
When women are trying to progress,
Yes.
to make sure they have the money to look about their children and so on, and to have upward social mobility, men should not feel threatened by this. And it should not come out as in the form of violence.
Yeah.
But I think that we also have to understand the history and the psychology, and also not act in a way which would make our male partners feel inferior. So this is what I'm saying about understanding the history.
Then we feel inferior if they want to feel inferior because of the psychology of it. This is
I understand it. So, but I'm just saying that we have to also try to understand each other. But I know what you're saying, but as a researcher, knowing the history and knowing the psychology of this, I'm saying, and as a mother of boys who I'm teaching also about this whole issue.
Yeah.
But yes, I agree with you that men should just stay in school, come out and go into the workspace and not feel inferior, and do what they have to do to respect women. We must respect women and respect each other and understand where we're coming from and why we have to work hard to progress and overcome this feeling that we are inferior to anybody.
In book 2, which this is such an important book. I think there's going to be something else. I would like to see the psychiatrist.
Yes.
In book 2, talking about you talk about power dynamics before, and how Fred Hickling has done some really great work on how power or narcissistic personality disorder and other personality disorders are built upon the foundation of power, and how people deal with the idea of inferiority. And I think part of that is really these personality disorders that he's identified in his research, and I'd like to see that come over to the conversation. But
because it goes so far back, manifested in sexual abuse of women on ships coming to Jamaica, wife murder,
those
flogging. Yes. And that's what we're trying to we're historicizing it, but we're trying to say, get rid of it. The rape, the murdering of women, just because we're women and because we have been trying to uplift ourselves.
And what about teaching? And then there's also this. I get you loud and clear, Professor Shepherd. And then there's this element of how we teach our daughters to, and you talk about raising boys, so that is critical. And then what we teach our daughters to look for. In terms of, we say red flag and that's not enough, but these personality disorders that will hit you or kill you, they're very similar in terms of how they manifest. And I think that we learn this and teach our daughters this too. I think there's so much to gain from this book.
That is because what I try to do in my chapter is to show the various ways in which this is manifested: domestic violence, sexual harassment, rape, sexual conflict, and harmful customary or traditional practices. For example, forced marriage and honor crimes, trafficking in women, forced prostitution, violations of human rights in armed conflict, forced sterilization, forced abortion, coercive use of contraceptives, female infanticide, prenatal sex selection. All of these are manifested in our society, and not just in our society, globally. And so, you mentioned the psychological violence. Yes, physical, sexual, and psychological violence, including battering, sexual exploitation, and all of that. And our history is full of them. But I'm saying move away. If we move away from the history, but understand the roots of it, but understanding that today we must try to fight against the sexism, the power, and the hegemonic masculinity, combined with notions of a gender, class, and race hierarchy. And we can't ignore religious. We don't like to talk about it, but we have religious orthodoxy people
of course.
believe strictly in what some of the pastors teach them about, hegemonic masculinity.
Exactly.
So we have to move away from that as well.
We need more time, more women in the church than men, and the role of women in propping these men up when they're in their narcissistic ropes. Verene, I really
Yes.
want to invite you back. So we can have when I'm finished reading the text, because I'm not finished, and then all some of the other.
Yes,
authors
it's a big
also.
book to read, so
Yes.
I don't blame you for not having been able to to get through it. But I'm just saying that we have a lot of information on this phenomenon,
Yes.
and as people read this book, I think greater understanding. They will have greater understanding because the
Yes.
chapters are really, really important. The broad-based issues that come up from right across the Caribbean and beyond. And so I urge the schools, the colleges, to use this book. Gender-based violence in the Caribbean, historical roots, contemporary continuities, because that's the title.
Full title. Where is
And-
it available?
The University of the West Indies Press published it. So the UA Press on the university campus. And, sadly, Cabo, we don't have as many bookshops as we used to,
I know.
and this is an issue.
Anti-intelligence is taking over.
And what I realize is that you mentioned the statistics, because recent global prevalence figures indicate that 35% of women worldwide have experienced either intimate partner violence or non-partner sexual violence in their lifetime. And globally, as many as 38% of murders of women are committed by an intimate partner. So, and I'm sure since I wrote this, the statistics have gone up.
I'm sure.
Rather than
I'm
down.
sure. I'm
And
sure.
therefore, until we understand the roots of it and try to understand what it means, the impact it has on our society, we will continue to perpetuate this
Verene,
type of violence.
Verene, thank you so much for the work you do, for the work you continue to do, for your passion and your commitment and your activism as a scholar. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me, and I look forward to seeing you at the launch and all our friends.
Most definitely.
this-
On Thursday
Yes.
at UA. Thank you so
Thursday,
much.
5:30. Yes.
All right. Thank you
Take
so much.
care.
Yes,
Bye.
You too.